back, and with me now is Veronica Kalema. She's the Director of Sovereigns at Fitch Ratings. Veronica, I suppose the question on a lot of South African people's minds is, what exactly should we be thinking about our sovereign rating, given all the turmoil that we've seen over the last few months?
Well, we look at risk scenarios when we assign our ratings, and the possibility of a Zuma win was definitely factored in when we put the rating on positive outlook in July. What we had not anticipated was the clean sweep for the left in the National Executive Committee. However, essentially our view is that the key policies have been embedded in the ANC framework for many years and will be difficult to change. And for now, the macro fundamentals are really sound in terms of the public finances, external debt, reserves, and so the impact for now is there's no impact for now.
Veronica, when one is determining a sovereign debt, a sovereign rating, how frequently is it revised, and what sort of things does one look at?
We review. We normally have an annual review, but we're constantly monitoring the rating. And for example, South Africa's credit rating is based on very sound macroeconomic fundamentals, and those still remain.
If one looks at the upgrade to a positive outlook for South Africa, what exactly does that mean?
Well, in our view, so long as policies continue to be implemented consistently over 2 years, this would possibly translate into an upgrade.
And if we look at the current capacity constraints that we're seeing, particularly at the top of mind for a lot of South Africans, is the load shedding that's being experienced from the power generator Eskom. There were calls today that said we need to possibly consider not asking for any further long-term investment until 2013, things like smelters and that sort of thing, because of power constraints. What would that do to the thinking at Fitch?
Well, the power constraints are an indicator of the fast growth of the economy. So basically, the economy is growing faster than potential, and so it is a constraint in the sense that the economy would have been growing faster if they're resolved. So it would constrain the pace of growth now, but it's an indicator basically of an overheating economy or a very fast growing economy.
And what does that do then to a rating?
Well, for now, so long as they're addressing investment in Eskom, over the time, these bottlenecks will be resolved, and and growth will be will continue at a good pace without any of the load shedding. So long as they're being addressed, that's fine for the rating.
If we look at sentiment, does that play a role at all in terms of things like business confidence, the feeling on the ground in the country, and also the perception of the country by the rest of the world? Does that have an effect at all?
Yeah, the reliance on portfolio inflows to finance South Africa's large current account deficit is a kind of risk factor or weakness for the rating, and then a decline in portfolio inflows will put pressure on the rand and worsen the macroeconomic outlook. And for now, the market reaction has been limited. But that said, in terms of Mr. Zuma, he has to establish credibility and keep policies broadly consistent, because the current account deficit is not going to go away, and you've got to keep on having good investor sentiment.
How much of a problem is the current account deficit?
Well, it's also it's the same thing. It's a symptom of a fast-growing economy, strong investment, and hopefully this investment will improve the competitiveness of the economy and raise the export ratio over time, and that will narrow the current account deficit. So we look at it from that point of view. That said, investor sentiment has to continue to be assuaged so that they continue to finance it.
I suppose that is the key. And then also then, in the same light, what Jacob Zuma needs to do is, as you say, keep consistent policies. What does he need to do at the moment to allay fears?
Well, currently, there has been no change to the ANC framework, and I guess we'd have to wait and see what policies, if there are going to be any changes in policies when the NEC next meets. So long as policies are broadly consistent, the country was on track to resolving a lot of these obstacles and to foster growth and reduction of poverty, etc. So long as those policies are conducted consistently, that should be all right.
Veronica, how does South Africa compare to the rest of all other emerging markets, particularly as we've seen a slight or quite a significant decline in the global economy?
Emerging markets have actually sort of kind of weathered this storm, in general. And South Africa is just like all the rest of them. So other things are going on in South Africa. There's strong domestic investment, strong consumer demand because of structural problems, structural issues in those areas, and that's the same with all the other countries. And in terms of inflows to South Africa and other emerging markets, in the context of all global inflows, it's very small.
If we look at the current situation that's unfolding in the U.S., the likelihood of a recession there, that's spilling out into the rest of Europe and the U.K. as well. What is the feeling overall in terms of the economic fundamentals underpinning the global economy, and that then its influence on South Africa?
Well, obviously, the global economy is expected to slow this year, particularly in the developed world. And that's going to have some impact on developing countries because that's where they export most of their goods, but not to the same extent because, as I said, other things are going on in these developing economies.
From Fitch's point of view, what would be the best case scenario for South Africa over 2008, 2009?
Best case in terms of what?
The likelihood of a ratings upgrade, or what would we need to do to improve our outlook?
Okay, put it this way. The political uncertainty is negative from the point of view of, in case we needed to make an improvement in the credit rating, would have to wait until there's more certainty. So don't expect an upgrade this year.
And how much of an impact does things like the problems we're seeing around the police force and that sort of thing, does that have as much of an impact as the political uncertainty?
Not really. These are in the whole big picture. I mean, ratings kind of look at the big picture, and in the bigger picture, they don't. They certainly don't feature as much.
Veronica, just to close off, what if we look at what has happened, particularly around the credit crunch, around subprime as well? The reputation of the rating agencies themselves has come under some fire. How important, or is it likely that the type of ratings that we're seeing coming out of the likes of Fitch will lose some of their importance globally, or is it likely that they'll carry on?
I can only speak for the sovereigns, and in terms of the sovereigns, the methodology is clear, it is transparent, and I don't think there's any reputational effect on sovereign ratings because of the subprime crisis.
And Veronica, just lastly, if we look at the South African position at the moment, what would need to go wrong now for the rating to immediately change or Fitch to start looking at us very closely?
Well, any weakening of the policy framework would cause us to put the rating back onto stable outlook. So it's definitely not a one-way bet, mainly because there is still an issue of policy uncertainty.
Veronica Kalema is the Director of Sovereigns at Fitch Ratings, and that's all from Power Lunch in association with MoneyWeb. We're crossing now to CNBC Europe for Power Lunch Europe with Louisa Boyton. CNBC Africa back at 4 p.m. Central African Time with regional updates.